Hey friends, my name is Mar and welcome back to my channel. I don't know about you guys, but fall is one of my favorite seasons to read. I don't know what's in the air when fall comes around, but for some reason when September, October, November hit, I truly just cannot stop reading. There's just something so special about fantasy fall that other seasons just cannot give me. And so for this week's video, I thought we would just do a fall reading vlog, and I'm just going to take you through some of the books that I'm reading this fall and just do a quick little reading vlog, show you my reactions to these books and all of that and my thoughts. If fall is your favorite month to read and you're looking for some new fall book recommendations, I am happy to bring you some. And so yeah, I'm going to show you my TBR for this video. I don't know if I'll get through all of these books, but for this video, we are going to try our best. And also, look at what happened. Look at what happened to my fall nails. They literally just popped off today. So we will be doing this video a bit nail empty until I get these done again. They were the perfect blood red vibey nails for fall, but you know, sometimes we have to make do with what we are given. But anyways, let me take you through my TBR. So the first book I decided to pick up was Raised by Wolves by Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. If you've watched any of my other reading vlogs or reading videos, you know I am a stan of Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm trying to get through all of the books that she's written and all of that. And so the last series I would say I have to read of hers is the Raised by Wolves series. This whole book is about this girl named Bronwyn, goes by the name Bryn, and she has been raised by werewolves all of her life. Something happened to her parents, presumably dead, I believe, and so she is raised by this pack of werewolves. That is sort of the main concept of this book. I believe there are 3 books in this series, so I'm excited to pick this up and start reading this. The second book I have isn't necessarily like a fall book, I would say, but I did get it towards the end of summer, and so I really did want to read it though, and that is Real by Kennedy Ryan. And I found this at HomeSense for like $5, and I just had to pick it up. I've heard great things about Kennedy Ryan in general and her writing, and so I was really curious to sort of pick this up and read about it. I've read the first few chapters of each of these books, but from what I can tell, this book is about this girl who pretty much becomes a Broadway actress, and she gets her like paths crossed with this, I believe, famous documentary filmmaker type of person. And I think it's like a romance book, a contemporary romance book between these two characters. I don't know anything past that, but let me tell you, the drama comes in hot in like just the prologue itself. I was actually truly shocked, and so that's kind of what like made me want to read this book, was just like the prologues themselves just made me want to like tune into the sort of drama that happens in this book. So I am sad for that. The next book I want to read at the beginning of the season is obviously Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I want to read this for a multitude of reasons. First off, R.F. Kuang is one of my favorite authors. I've read all of her books, and so this is her newest release, and pretty much it's about these 2 students who travel to hell to get a recommendation letter from their dead professor. I'm really excited to read this because I just really don't know what to expect. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about this book from people, but I feel like a lot of people just have mixed reviews about R.F. Kuang's writing in general. Personally, I'm someone who loves her writing, and so I will literally pick up anything she writes. Like, she could write a menu and I would devour it. Anyway, so I'm super excited to read this. I think her books are kind of funny. Like, I think all of her characters in a way are just, they're, all of them are so unhinged that you can't help but like not laugh at, you know, how crazy their thoughts are and their minds are, but at the same time, like, I'm always entertained. every time I read her books. So I'm super excited for Katabasis. I'm not sure if I'll finish it for this video, but I do need to finish it before September 14th because that is when I am seeing Arf Kwong live in person. I really kind of just want to go into that talk knowing what is happening. So I'm super excited to read this. And then finally, the last book we have on the roster for this, I guess, beginning month and all that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And this is mostly just due to the fact that every single time I go to the movies now, they play the Project Hail Mary trailer. And because I haven't read this book, I can't watch the trailer because I don't want any spoilers on what's happening and all that. So I have to act me being the fool that I was not picking up this book earlier. I literally have to shut my eyes while I'm at the movie theater while this trailer plays and close my ears because I don't want anyone to spoil this for me. So luckily I've been able to avoid spoilers of this book, but now that I know my camera, my phone right here, is listening to me, I know I'm probably going to get spoilers within the next few days on my TikTok and all that. So I really have to get reading this. I also got the audiobook on Audible, so we will be doing some immersive listening. I heard the audiobook is really, really good. I listened to the first chapter. I was hooked. I was sat. I was ready. And so, yeah, that is the last book in this sort of TBR to read in the next few weeks and all of that. And again, I have my whole fall TBR down there for your viewing if you want. I don't even think you can read what's here, but we have a lot in store for fall, and I am very excited for it. Unfortunately, I am a mood reader, so I read what my mood tells me to read. So that's why we got some sci-fi, we got some fantasy, we got some romance, we got some werewolves. Yeah, it's sort of choose your own adventure with me. And so what adventure will I be choosing? I have no clue, but we will be here and we will be sat. Let's get reading and let's see what the first book I pick up for this vlog is. I thought I would come on here and do my first little update for this fall reading vlog. And so work has been crazy busy this week, but I have managed to try and fit as much reading I can into my schedule. And so the first book I decided to pick up was Raised by Wolves by Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a young adult series about a girl who's being raised by a pack of werewolves. One thing about me is I love any piece of media that involves werewolves. I think it's just because I grew up watching the show Teen Wolf, and so I have a very soft spot in my heart for any werewolf related things. I'm about 30% of the way into this book now, and I would say like the first couple chapters is really just like Jennifer Lynn Barnes establishing the lore of this world and all of that, because I feel like with a lot of different pop culture, the lore of werewolves changes. And so watching a show like Teen Wolf and then watching like something like Twilight, you're going to get very varying pieces of werewolf lore in each of those types of medias, in sort of the way they operate and how that world is built out, I guess. And so I feel like when you compare those things as well, I would say like the Teen Wolf side of things is it's a very campy show. Like that show is one of the campiest shows I watched growing up, and I loved it. But with that show, the werewolf lore isn't as like detailed or like intense or anything. It's sort of just like things happen a lot of the times based off of just like plot conveniency and all of that. And so like there isn't actually a lot of depth when it comes to the world building of like how werewolves operate and all of that. It's very much like it's about a friend group of teenagers who all happen to be like different supernatural creatures, and they're trying to figure out the underlying mystery of the specific season. This book more so gives like serious energy as to like how this werewolf pack operates, and it is a lot more serious than I was expecting it to be for a young adult like book series. It kind of gives like the tone in a way of like Twilight, in the sense that it is very serious, like it's weirdly serious for situations that shouldn't be so serious, but it kind of reminds me of the wolf pack in like Twilight, but like with less imprinting and all of that. In this book, the main character Bryn, she is rescued by this alpha named Callum, and Callum has this like big werewolf like wolf pack, and so like everyone in this wolf pack has raised Bryn and all of that, and so Bryn is more in a way familiar with the inner workings of like the wolf pack and all of that. And in this book she is in a way kind of trying to grapple with, being on the wolf pack side of things, and also like being a teenage girl who goes to school. She has a bit of a rebellious streak, and she, doesn't really want to listen to this wolf pack, and she, is trying to escape them like multiple times just because she wants to get a rise out of them and all of that. And so there ends up like being the situation where she finds a young boy around her age trapped in a cage in the basement of Callum's house. And it turns out that he is a werewolf, but he's a bitten werewolf. And so in this overall world, also like this is not a spoiler, it's on the back of the book and all of that, but like in this world, there are kind of like two different types of werewolves. So they're the ones that have been born and raised into a werewolf family and all of that. And then there are the ones that have been bit by like bit by a werewolf, and these werewolves are called rabids. And so that's kind of how this world works. Bryn is a simple like human teenager, but she has the instincts of a werewolf because she was raised by werewolves, if that makes sense. I don't know. The world building in this, there's just like a lot of lore and world building in this book that I was like, I wasn't like expecting. I wouldn't necessarily call it like world building, but there's just a lot of rules in this wolf pack that I just wasn't expecting to come across, if that makes sense. The underlying mystery hasn't really appeared yet in this book. it just mainly feels like we're just being told, here's how a wolf pack operates and things that I cannot tell you because of spoilers. Anyway, so that's kind of where we are in Raised by Wolves right now. And I don't really know how I feel about this specific Jennifer Lynn Barnes book because I feel like with the other books she's written, I've been able to get like immediately hooked onto each of those series relatively quickly. It's just right now, I don't think my brain can handle this book right now, but I am 30% of the way in, and I will probably continue reading this throughout the week and update you guys with my thoughts on this book. But yeah, these are just sort of but these are like my overall like first impressions of this book series so far. The second book I want to update you guys on is Real by Kennedy Ryan. And so this is a contemporary romance, and I believe I'm about 15% of the way through this book, and so far it has had me hooked. I really like the writing of Kennedy Ryan. I think her writing is a mix of both just like very easy to read, but also there's a lot of humor in it. The main characters of this book, you come to understand like very quickly. Like they're very established from the get go of their prologue chapters and their introductions and all of that. And so I really like the pace that this book is going in, and I like the kind of situation that our characters are in. Both of the characters in this book are Black, and so there is a ton of representation when it comes to these characters, Black culture, and all of that. And so it's really interesting getting to read that because I feel like, we don't get a lot of that, and when, you do, it's not represented in the best way. And so getting to just read a book about like two Black characters, falling in love and all that has been really interesting. I'm just like learning a lot through this representation and all that. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to continue reading this tonight. I think I'll get through this fairly quickly. The only thing about this book is like the writing is insanely small. Like the font that is used in this book is insanely small. I think it's like, I don't know, it's got to be like 8 to 10 point font or whatever. Not that I'm complaining, it's just I have horrible eyesight. And so when I read, I feel like I have to like hold this book real close to my face. But, anyways, yeah, I think I'm going to continue on with this book tonight. And then we'll see where I get in the next few days. But those are my first impressions of Real by Kennedy Ryan. It's been a while since I last picked up the camera and talked to you guys about what I've been reading. This past week has been very busy, and have I been emotionally and mentally well? Debatable. But I finally had some free time to actually pick up a book and read, so I ended up continuing Raised by Wolves by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and now I've made it to about 60% of the way through this book. I thought it would just be a good time to update you guys on this book and my thoughts on this book and all of that. I don't know how else to describe this book, but this is probably the most animalistic book that I've read. I don't know what I thought this book was going to be about going into it, but I was expecting something completely different than what I've been reading, and like and I mean that in a good way and in a bad way as well, if that makes sense. I think this is her first trilogy that she's written, because this definitely just feels like the first book in a series, and so I would say the pacing of it is a lot slower compared to a lot of her other books. I feel like when you read a lot of her other books, like the mystery element or like the concept is introduced a lot quicker in the book compared to this. This one, I feel like there's just a lot more world building going on because there's that supernatural element. The werewolf lore in Teen Wolf differs entirely from how it operates in this book. And so I think wrapping my head around that, like, this is very much unlike a lot of these supernatural like shows and books and literature that I've read before, like it took me a while to wrap my head around. And then now that I've kind of got the world building of sort of how a werewolf pack works and all that in this book, I think it's a bit more enjoyable now. Once we got to that 40% mark, it's now moving super fast. There's a mystery element involved. There's, again, a lot of lore in this and like a lot of world building that is very, I would say, a bit more uncommon in the media that I've watched and all that, like regarding werewolves and all that. And I would say like this one takes itself more seriously. It takes itself more seriously in the sense that like there are politics, there are rules that can't be broken, and obviously with like the main girl, her whole personality trait is that she wants to break these rules. I've gotten to 60%. I really don't know where like the last 30% is going to head and all of that. So I am going to continue reading this book. I'm going to try and finish it tonight so I can move on to the other books I want to read. If you're going into this book thinking it'll be similar to the other Jennifer Lynn Barnes books, I don't expect that. This is probably like the most different book series that I've read of hers. I am having a good time with it now, but I do think that the pacing of it at the beginning was just like very slow. But now I'm getting into it. I'm going to try and finish this and we'll see my thoughts.
With another man, I knew that you won't forget.
Okay, so I have about 15% left, so let's get reading.
It wasn't you, and it wasn't me. You said I was walking with another man, with another man. I knew that you won't forget. Forget me. I was walking with someone else. It wasn't you, and it wasn't me. You said I was walking with another man, with another man. I knew that you won't forget.
So I ended up finishing Raised by Wolves by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and so I thought I would come and share my final sort of thoughts and review on this book. And the only thing I can really say is that like did I have a good time reading this book? Yes. Is this my favorite Jennifer Lynn Barnes book? No. I think this might be my least favorite, but not to say that this was a bad book at all or anything. It was just very different from what I was expecting when I was going into it. First off, I think one of the things that kind of threw me back was how much world building and lore that needed to be explained. This book is about this girl named Bryn. When she was young, her family ended up getting attacked by this like rabid werewolf, and she gets saved by this other werewolf pack who ends up raising her as like their own. So she's faced in this situation that she ends up coming across a teenage boy who she has this very like deep connection to. And so a lot of this book is sort of kind of uncovering like the mystery of this connection with this boy and all of that, and pretty much learning about a lot of the stuff the pack kind of hid from her. I think what kind of threw me while reading this the most was just that there is definitely like this kind of like psychic telepathic connection happening. So all of the werewolves in this one pack, because they're e-pack, they communicate via like this telepathic link and all that. So that was the first thing that kind of threw me aback. The second part was that this just felt a bit more adult than a lot of her other books. Not to say that like this is like super adult, like Omegaverse side of things. Like no, it's not like that. But it is very descriptive when it comes to the kind of animalistic, territorial type of you know side of things that is a lot more like animalistic behavior in the sense versus like human behavior. So there's a lot of like description of like this wolf pack being territorial and sorting out situations via how like in a more animalistic sense than like a human sense. And so there was like a lot more, I would say, like violence in this book as well, and more questionable behavior that also kind of threw me aback. Those were the things that I kind of like didn't necessarily like dislike, but it took me a while to get used to while reading this book. And so I think the thing I didn't like about this book was just like the kind of uneven pacing of it. It took me like 40% to actually feel engaged while reading this book. The main character I didn't really connect to as much. And so reading about her and kind of her like behavior and her decisions, I was kind of just like, okay, girl, like we get it, let's get into it. But I do like a lot of the more like supporting characters and all that. There are a lot of characters who aren't necessarily in this specific wolf pack, or they're part of it, but they don't agree with a lot of the decisions that the wolf pack make. And so they ultimately make some decisions in this book to get away from that wolf pack and not kind of tolerate that animalistic behavior that like ends up hurting a lot of people. And so that's what I also like, that's kind of one of the things I enjoyed about it. The second half of the novel, I was very much engaged. There was much more of like a mystery element to it. There was a lot more action to it. Did I guess the twists coming a mile away? Yes, I did. I still had a good time reading it, and it definitely sets up what's going to happen in the next two books, which I am excited to read. This was definitely a book that was more so for like setting up everything and all of that. And so like the second half also I felt like picked up a lot quicker, and almost like a bit too quick in my opinion. I feel like there could have been a lot of things, especially with like the antagonist of this book. I think there could have been a lot more done with them. At the end of the day, I still like this book. I gave it a 3.75 stars, and so that is probably one of the lower ratings I've had for a Jennifer Lynn Barnes book. If you like that kind of supernatural mystery type of vibe, I think you would still enjoy this. Again, this is definitely more, I would say it's written more like, again, like YA and all that, but there are some elements that make it feel a bit more adult. I would recommend this for definitely a bit of an older audience, I would say, because there is some violence in it. It was just like there was a lot more violence in this than I thought there would be. That is the first book I've read for this fall reading vlog, and I think I'm going to spend most of the day trying to read Real by Kennedy Ryan, because I just need more of a, I guess, a lighthearted, I don't even know if that book is even lighthearted, but more of like a contemporary romance to kind of balance this very like supernatural-esque type of book. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Raised by Wolves by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and let's get into more reading. I just went for a walk and I just got back, and on my walk in one of the free little libraries, I ended up finding this book. This is part of the Fallen series, which I remember like vividly seeing these series, like the series like in my local library and in like my school, I believe, but I never was at that age or point where I really wanted to pick it up and read this. This is the second book in the series. The first book wasn't there, so someone must have taken it, or this book is trash. But either way, I am interested in seeing what the series is about. I really don't know what this is about other than it's about like angels or something, but I found this, it was in pretty good condition, and I feel like with those like little libraries, it's very like hit or miss with them because you just never know what condition the books are in. But yeah, I found it, and I don't know, this might be a fall or winter read for me now. On my walk, I ended up listening to the audiobook of Katabasis because I read the first chapter, but because like so much has happened this week, my brain is just competing with what information needs to be where. I decided that I would listen to the first chapter again just to see where I am and how much information I remember. And what I like about R.F. Kuang's book is that they're like super accessible, even though like a lot of the times they're more so on like the dark academia, like fantasy. I would say that the writing is also very accessible in that like even if you're not like a subject matter expert on the topic, she writes in such a way that it's like you understand what she's getting at, what point she's getting at, what she's grasping at. And I think a lot of people have criticism because they're like, oh, she just spoon feeds you like every single point of like that she wants to get across. And you know, sometimes while reading a book, is that so bad? Like, is that truly so bad? Especially when you know, you may not be familiar with the subject or whatever. Like, is that so bad to be spoon-fed information, or to, you know, have information or read information that's a bit more accessible than, you know, other authors and all of that? Because at the end of the day, I don't know why we're all very pretentious when we read books, because at the end of the day, we're still reading books. And reading is an art that I wouldn't say is dying, but it's definitely not as common. I listened to the audiobook for katabasis on my walk, and now I think I'm going to take a quick body shower because I don't know what's in the air right now, but I feel so gross after that walk. And then I'm going to continue with my reading for today. So, little update, I am now about 70% of the way into this book, and I haven't been really giving any updates as my reading progress because I've sort of just been super engrossed in this book. I have not been able to put it down at all this afternoon, and so I'm just trying to get through as much of it as I can. I will try to finish this tonight, but overall, I really enjoy it. Is this going to be my favorite romance novel of the year? Probably not, but I do like the story. I do like the characters and all of that. Pretty much in this book, we're following these two characters. One of them is like this very, you know, famous film documentary director, and then the other one is this, you know, sort of up and coming actress who has really doesn't have a lot of accolades to her name or anything like that, but she gets discovered being an understudy on Broadway and all of that. And pretty much it's a love story between them. The director, he hires this actress to be the lead actress in this new documentary that he's producing and all of that. This book discusses a lot of different topics, and I some a bit heavier than others, but I would say this is definitely a book that really focuses on the representation of Black people and the politics in Hollywood and how they present themselves and what it means to be Black in these, you know, spaces like Broadway, Hollywood, all of in the entertainment industry. And so I have really liked this so far. And, there are definitely a lot of other topics that are being discussed, like health related and all of that. I really like the way that this book has been also like laid out as well, because in some chapters, it's not like a point of view, it's the actual like manuscript of this documentary. And I think, and so the manuscript, gives you a lot more information about just like the history of Black people in, entertainment spaces and all of that. And it provides a really good transition and also like reflections of the characters, because they are essentially acting out a lot of these scenes. And so it's just a very interesting way the story is being told. And yeah, but I did want to just like stop reading and come on here and discuss that with you guys. And yeah, so I'm going to try and finish up this book and then give you my ratings a bit later when I'm done. So I just finished reading Real by Kennedy Ryan, and this is the first ever Kennedy Ryan book that I've read. And I personally really like this. I thought it was a very cute contemporary romance book. Just everything about it was just a very interesting read and a very inspiring read. And there's so much diverse representation in this book, especially when it comes to Black representation. And what I personally really enjoyed about it was it does dive into a lot of different topics and different issues, real world issues, history, and all of that. There are a lot of topics that I myself wasn't familiar with because, first off, I am not Black and I am not American. And so a lot of this does cover like Black history and all that, even if it is fictional, if that makes sense. But at the same time, she does reference a lot of just like things that happen when it came to Black history and Black people in America. This one also has very good representation in the two main characters. The female main character, Neva Saint, like she is a character that is, really trying to follow her dreams and make her dreams come true. And when she gets that chance, she's going to take it and she's going to give 110% into her dreams, because this is like pretty much what she has been fighting to get. During this book as well, you learn about all of the other issues that she's had to dealt with and is going through and how strong she is. And I feel like if you're looking for a contemporary romance that has a very strong female character and a very inspiring female character, I would say to read this. There's just a lot of elements to the female main character that I feel like a lot of people would either relate to or feel very inspired by. And the main male character in this book, Cannon Holt, he is a very interesting character, because if we didn't have his point of view in this book, I don't think I would have liked him as much as I did while reading. He is very much a character that is very blunt, he's very down to business and all that, but when he finds someone that he cares about, he is going to treat them like they are royalty, and that's sort of who Cannon is. But he's more of a thinker than a communicator, if that makes sense. Like, there were moments in this book where they do communicate and they do communicate well, but at the same time, they do have those like tiny miscommunications that sometimes they don't treat each other like the best in the moments, and they, really act before they think. And I think with Cannon, he once you start to read more about him and his point of view, he starts to grow on you. The romance in this book moves a lot slower. There's a lot more tension at the beginning, and then once the characters kind of get together, then I think the book kind of shifts to them being together and them figuring out, the politics of their jobs, the health issues that arise, and the other situations that come about in the later half of this book. But overall, I had a really good time reading this. I really enjoyed it. I rated this a 4.5 stars. There were just a lot of things in this that I really enjoyed, and I'm someone who doesn't read as much contemporary romance now, and so I feel like this was a good book to kind of dip my toes back into that genre. That is what I thought of Real by Kennedy Ryan. And also, one more thing. I honestly wish there were more chapters with the manuscript of the documentary biopic movie that the characters were creating. Like every time I came across those scenes reading the script, I love them. I enjoyed them so much. I wish there were more moments because I feel like, especially toward the end, there were less of them. Those are just my thoughts and my review on Real by Kennedy Ryan. I really enjoyed this book and I would recommend it for people who are looking for a diverse contemporary romance. I think for the rest of the night, I'm just going to relax and maybe read Katabasis by R.F. Kuang because I do have to get started with that because I'm literally seeing her next week, which is crazy. But yeah, that is my review of Real by Kennedy Ryan. Hey guys, so it's been a few days since I last updated you guys, and I've made the decision to cut this vlog a bit shorter because I'm currently reading Katabasis right now, and I've made it to about 20% of the way through this book. And I decided to pick this up in a different vlog because on Sunday I'm going to be seeing R.F. Kuang at her book tour event happening in my city. And so usually like authors also, most of them don't come where I live. I'm super excited to see her, and it turns out also like there is a signing part of this event and all of that, which wasn't included in the original description. And so now I am trying to mentally prep for that because I have no idea what I'm going to say to Arv Kwang when I meet her. I thought I would come on here and end this vlog a bit early because I am going to try my best now to finish Katabasis by tomorrow because I need to know what's going on in this event. I need to be in the loop about what's happening in this book. And so, yeah, I'm only 20% of the way in. And so tonight and tomorrow, I plan on reading as much as I can before the event. And so I thought that I would make that a vlog in itself. So I'm going to cut this vlog a bit shorter, but I hope this was a fun vlog to transition, into the fall season. I at least read a few books on my TBR for this video, and so yeah, but I will pick this up again in my next vlog, which is solely going to be about Katabasis. And so yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you like this video, watch another one, like it, I don't know, and I'll see you in my next one.